So now I'm gonna start by making a stripe bracelet. So this bracelet is kind of the next level up in difficulty to the snake on the pole that we just made. So as you can see, it has 4 colors and there's a decent stripe of distinct color all the way down. And then I have a way to end the bracelet here. So I'm gonna show you how to make the stripe bracelet, how to start it off, and how to finish it off today. So these were the 4 colors that I decided to use for my bracelet. And for this bracelet, you wanna make sure you have plenty of string. So for measuring it out, you're gonna wanna make sure you have a full arm length from your fingertip to your shoulder of all your string. And since we're gonna use each string twice, as in that we want 2 strands of each string, if that makes sense, 2 pieces of each color, we're gonna fold it in half at this point after we measure from our fingertip to our shoulder. We're gonna pinch right here and measure the same thing again. And that's how we snip it, and that's how we measure each string. So I've already done that. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold it in half as best as you can, trying to make sure, it's a little bit hard because it's really long in the beginning, I know that. Just trying to make sure that roughly each side of the bracelet is gonna end up being the same length. And then if you see here, I've got my loop again. I'm gonna tie the string at the loop. Just like we've done all the other times. Kind of find that loop again with your finger to help you pull it tight. Okay. So because we have the loop at the top of this one, this is where you'd have the option to either tape it down to a table or something, or clip it underneath the clipboard, or you can even clip this one to your water bottle like I showed you before. You've got options for this one. Now we need to start working on separating our string so that way it's not one big clump like this. But for this string, for this bracelet, I want all of my colors, I want both of each color to be together. So I want both my maroons together, both my oranges, both my browns, and both my yellows. So now that we have all of our colors roughly where we want them, we can put these a bit closer together. Just try not to let them get too tangled, especially here at the beginning. What I'm mostly interested right now is my maroon strings. So those are still a little bit tangled together. Let me unwind them. Okay. So this string right here, this is gonna be our first leading string, okay? So if you remember when we were doing snake on the pole, the number 4 was very important. The number 4 is still very important, but instead of tying your leading string around all of the other strings like we did with snake on the pole, we're gonna tie it around 1 string at a time, okay? So the next string that I'm worried about here is my other maroon string. So make sure you're watching carefully so you don't get the maroon strings mixed up. This is where it can be a little tricky. So I take my leading string like a 4, like this. I tuck it underneath the stem of the 4, and I'm gonna pull up, making sure that my leading maroon string is the one that stays on top for the knot. Pull it nice and tight. Now I know it looks like we didn't do anything, and the top of the bracelet will kind of look a little weird for a while, but that's what we gotta keep going, okay? So just try to trust me on this one. So for each string, you're gonna do 2 knots. So you're gonna take this leading string and do a second knot on the stem string, okay? We're gonna go underneath again and pull it up nice and tight. If you have to let go and reposition your hand when the string's really long, that's fine. So now we have our 2 knots. So now our extra stem string, the one that I'm wiggling, this one, we don't need him for a little while. So we're gonna kind of toss him to the side. But the string that I'm holding with this hand and I'm now wiggling, this is still gonna be our leading string and we're gonna need him for a little while. So don't lose track of him, okay? So I wanted my yellow color to come next, so I'm gonna kind of pull him out of the mix. And he becomes the new stem of the 4, okay? And I'm gonna take my leading string again, and now we have a 4. It's easier to see which color is correct when it's the 2 different strings. So this one should be a little bit easier to navigate. But again, we're gonna do the same thing. We go underneath like this. We're gonna pull tight, making sure the maroon stays on top, because whatever string is on top is what color you're gonna see. We're gonna do the same thing. So the 4, underneath like this, and up like this. So we just did 2 knots with the yellow string, so we're gonna put him aside. And I'm gonna get the other yellow string. Kind of get him detangled from over here. So we're gonna do the exact same thing as before. Make the 4, underneath, pull up, make the 4, take the tail underneath, and pull up. All right, and we're done with this yellow string. and I want brown to come next, so I'm gonna take one of my brown strings out of the mess. And again, the brown becomes my stem. I'm gonna do the exact same thing as before. Up nice and tight, trying to keep my other ones out of it. And again, the 4, underneath, and pull tight. If you're noticing the top of my bracelet looks a little scary right now, again, that is completely normal. Don't get discouraged. The top is gonna look a little funky for a little while, but I promise after several rows, it'll start to look like the striped bracelet. So again, we're gonna move on to the next brown string. Make the next 4, okay? The leading string, tuck it around, and up real tight. And once again, underneath, up real tight. And we're gonna ditch the brown string and start with the orange. A little twisted, so I'm gonna untwist them first. All right, orange becomes the new stem. 4, the number 4, around and underneath, and pull nice and tight up at the top. And again, same knot twice. All right, we're gonna ditch that one. Start with the next orange. All right, pulling tight, and once again. So at this point, you finished your first row. I will admit, it doesn't look like much. It kind of looks like an extension of our top knot and looks a little messy, but that's okay, because now that we have all of the strings in more of an order, they're not gonna wanna tangle as much going forward. So this string right here that we just used all the way across, we're done with this one for a while, and this one actually rejoins the group as one of the stem strings. So we'll move everybody over. But if you remember, I had both maroon strings next to each other, so then this other maroon string is going to be my next leading string. So fundamentally, this next row will look identical. And then we're gonna move on to our final maroon string as the stem string. And this will finish off our row with 2 knots here. So they both rejoin the group. So if you look closely, now that we have that second row, it looks a little bit more like a stripe of maroon, okay? So now that we've got those 2 rows, those first 2 rows are the ones that look, like I said, a little scary. So we're gonna start with the yellow now, and it should start to look better as you go on. Alright, so now I have all 4 of my colors shown here. So technically in total I have about 8 rows, 8 individual rows, but as far as colors, you see 4 color rows. Of course, you can keep going. I've got a ton of string left, so I'm gonna keep going ordinarily. But I wanna be able to show you guys the end of the bracelet. So if you notice here, I think I got the full pattern done about 4 or 5 times with all 4 colors. And then I saw how much string I had left and needed to be able to tie it on, because I was looking at my wrist and seeing the size of it, and I needed to extend my bracelet a little bit. So what I decided to do is make some braids. So these two braids right here are each with half the string. So again, I do a 3-strand braid, so I'll put some of the string together. So I'm gonna first split the string in half. So since naturally my maroon and my yellow is right next to each other and my brown and my orange are next to each other, I'll just separate it like that. And I'll just decide to put the middle two together. So there'll be one maroon that's by itself, and then the one maroon and yellow by itself, and then the yellow over here. Move this out of the way. And then I'm just gonna start to braid like I've done before. Okay, so that's about as long as I'm making this braid right now. It's not super long, but you get the point. So then we'll loop around like we did before to close it. Pull this all through, cinch it up to the end of your braid, and make it as tight as you need to. I'm gonna not make mine super tight right now because I wanna go back and finish this bracelet after the video, but this is what you do on this side. And then you're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. So this is a very shrunk down version of this completed one here. So again, like I said, most of your bracelet is gonna be this pattern, and then a little bit of your tail. And I left the little fringes on the end, again, just to help me with tying. You can always snip those off at the end. So then the great part with having those two tails and this loop, I entangled it. So I can't really tie it on my own wrist, but we're just gonna pretend that my wrist is here. And you can slip the two tails through, so it's on the bracelet. And then you can loop around the loop again a few times if you need to help you tie it in place and tie the knot. And then you have your straight bracelet.